You're in a public place, a cafe, a bus, a supermarket aisle, and you notice it. A baby is staring at you, not casually, not briefly, but directly. No smile, no movement, no blinking, just stillness, like you've been selected for observation. Most adults react the same way: smile back, wave, awkwardly look away, or pretend it didn't happen. But the baby doesn't stop. If anything, the stare intensifies. And then something even stranger happens. They go completely still. No expression, no sound, just fixed attention. And suddenly, the situation feels heavier than it should, because nothing is happening, but it feels like something is happening. So what is that moment actually? Curiosity, recognition, random fixation? Or something deeper in how the infant brain processes unfamiliar humans? Because this isn't rare. It happens everywhere, across cultures, across ages, across environments, and always with the same structure: stare, stillness, evaluation. Which suggests it's not random, it's a system response. And in this episode, we're going to break down what that system is actually doing. To an adult, a stranger is simple: a face, a body, a presence. But to an infant nervous system, it is not a person yet. It is a collection of signals that has not been classified. Movement patterns, eye direction, facial symmetry, timing of motion, distance behavior. Everything is data. Nothing is identity. So when a baby locks eyes with a stranger, they are not looking at you in the adult sense. They are running a full system scan. Not consciously, not intentionally, but automatically. Because the brain is trying to answer one question: what kind of system is this? Stable? Unpredictable? Safe? Overstimulating? Responsive? Or unknown? And the only way to answer that is to hold input long enough for patterns to emerge, which is why the stare doesn't break immediately. The system is collecting consistency data across micro moments, across tiny changes in expression, across how you react to being observed. Now here's the important shift. Adults think eye contact is social. Babies use eye contact as measurement. Not connection, not communication, but calibration. A way to map how another system behaves when it is being observed. Because observation itself changes behavior, even slightly. And the infant brain is extremely sensitive to that change. So when you smile back, move, or shift posture, the baby is not just seeing action. They are seeing reaction to their attention, and that reaction becomes part of the data set. Now this is where stillness enters. Once enough data is collected in a short window, the system often enters a different state: reduced output mode. No smiling, no vocalization, no movement, just observation. Because now the brain is no longer searching. It is comparing, matching patterns against internal templates of familiarity and predictability. And that comparison requires stability, not stimulation, which is why the baby becomes still. From the outside, this looks like emotional shutdown, or deep focus, or even discomfort. But internally, it is structured evaluation. A system trying to decide whether continued engagement is necessary or whether classification is already sufficient. And depending on what it finds, everything changes. Which leads to the next layer: why some strangers trigger longer staring, while others are ignored almost instantly. Not all strangers trigger the same response. Some are ignored almost instantly, a glance, then away. Others get held, studied, tracked, almost as if the baby cannot close the file. And from the outside, it feels random, but inside the system, it isn't. Because the infant brain is not asking, "Do I know this person?" It is asking something more specific. Does this pattern fit anything I already understand? And the answer depends on structure, not identity. Humans carry patterns in motion, not just faces, the way someone walks, the timing of their movements, how their attention shifts, how predictable their reactions are, even the rhythm of micropauses in behavior. And infants are unusually sensitive to these temporal patterns because they are still building the foundation for predicting people. So when a stranger's pattern is clear and consistent, the system can process quickly. But when a pattern is partially familiar but not fully matched, something different happens. The system cannot classify it immediately, and that creates a hold state. Not attention in the adult sense, but unresolved categorization. This is where the long stare begins. Because the brain doesn't release a stimulus it cannot classify yet. It keeps it active. keeps it in processing, keeps comparing incoming data against internal models. And during this time, the baby often becomes still. Not because they are calm, but because movement would interfere with signal clarity. They are essentially reducing noise to improve pattern detection. Now here's the subtle part. When the system cannot fully match a stranger to a known category, it doesn't treat them as safe or unsafe immediately. It treats them as unresolved data. And unresolved data requires more sampling, more observation, more time, which is why staring continues longer than expected and why it feels like being analyzed. Because in a sense, it is, but not socially, structurally. Now this leads to something even more interesting, because the baby is not only reading the stranger is also changing the baby's internal state. Every new pattern that cannot be easily classified increases cognitive load, and that load must be managed. Which is why stillness often follows prolonged staring. The system reduces output so it can continue processing efficiently. And this creates a visible loop. Observe cannot classify, reduce movement, observe more. But even this is still not the deepest layer. Because sometimes babies don't just observe strangers. They hold gaze longer than expected, even when classification seems complete. And that suggests something beyond pattern matching, something tied to prediction error itself. And in the next part, we're going to explore why uncertainty can become a kind of attraction for the infant brain, and why some faces trigger sustained attention even without familiarity. There's a strange contradiction in infant behavior. They don't always stare longer at what they recognize. They often stare longer at what they don't fully understand. Not completely unknown, not completely familiar, but somewhere in between. And that in-between state is where attention becomes sticky, because the infant brain is not just built to recognize patterns, it is built to reduce uncertainty. And uncertainty has a cost. Every unresolved pattern requires energy to maintain in working memory. Every incomplete classification requires ongoing comparison. Every ambiguous signal requires continued monitoring. So the brain tries to resolve it as efficiently as possible. But when resolution is not immediate, something unexpected happens. Attention increases, not decreases, because the system prioritizes unknown but relevant information. And faces are extremely high priority signals. They represent social prediction, interaction forecasting, environmental stability. So when a face produces partial predictability, the system doesn't release it, it holds it. Now here's the key mechanism, prediction error. When the brain expects a pattern, but the pattern is not fully matched, a mismatched signal is generated. And that mismatch is not just noise, it is information. It tells the system this model is incomplete, and incomplete models require further sampling. So the baby continues looking, not because they are confused in a simple sense, but because the system is actively trying to reduce prediction error. This is why the stare feels so intense. It is not passive observation. It is active error correction. The brain is repeatedly updating what it thought it saw, what it actually sees, what it expects next. And each update requires another moment of stillness, another frame of observation, another check. But there is a limit. If uncertainty is too high, the system shifts into avoidance. If it is too low, the system disengages. But in the middle range, uncertainty becomes engaging. Not stressful enough to escape, not simple enough to ignore, just complex enough to hold attention, and that is where prolonged staring happens. Now here's something most people don't realize. This same mechanism is the foundation for later learning, language acquisition, facial recognition, social prediction, emotional mapping. Because the brain learns fastest when prediction is slightly wrong, but not too wrong. That balance keeps the system engaged without overwhelming it. So when a baby stares at a stranger, they are not just observing, they are training prediction systems in real time. But there is still one more layer, because sometimes the stare doesn't end with classification or disengagement. Sometimes it ends with a sudden shift in emotional state. Calm, alertness, or even crying. And in the final part, We're going to connect attention, prediction, and emotional response to explain why some encounters feel like they change the baby instantly. There's a moment that feels almost invisible to adults. A baby is staring, still, quiet, processing. And then something shifts. The face relaxes or tightens, the body leans forward or pulls back. Sometimes the cry starts, sometimes it stops, and it feels like the baby made a decision. But that framing is misleading because what changed wasn't intention, it was internal state stability. The infant brain is constantly balancing two things: prediction accuracy, system load. When prediction becomes too uncertain, the system has to compensate. And it does that by increasing arousal. Attention intensifies, muscle tone changes, emotional output increases. This is why staring can suddenly turn into crying, not because the baby is reacting emotionally to you, but because the system is exceeding its processing threshold. Now, here's the key idea. A stranger's face is not just unknown. It is a high-dimensional prediction problem. Every micro detail is being processed simultaneously. Symmetry, motion timing, eye behavior, responsiveness, consistency over time. And if those signals do not resolve into a stable pattern quickly, the system escalates. Because unresolved prediction is not neutral for a developing brain. It creates internal instability. So emotional output becomes a regulation tool. Crying is not just distress, it is system discharge, a way to reset overload. But here is where it becomes even more interesting. Sometimes the opposite happens. Instead of escalation, there is sudden calm. No crying, no distress, just release. And this occurs when the system detects something very specific: predictable responsiveness. Not familiarity, not identity, but behavioral stability in return signals. When the baby's brain predicts, if I output a signal, I get a consistent response, the system downregulates because uncertainty decreases and safety increases. This is why some strangers calm babies instantly, not because of who they are, but because of how predictable their interaction patterns are in that moment, and why others trigger distress immediately, because their patterns introduce instability into the prediction system, even if unintentionally, even without awareness. Now here's the final shift. The stare is not about curiosity alone. It is about building a model of how the world responds back. And every face is a test case. Every interaction is data. Every reaction is a correction. Over time, these micro-events become the foundation of social understanding, not through teaching, but through continuous prediction adjustment. So when a baby stares at a stranger and suddenly goes still, you are not seeing passive observation. You are seeing a system actively constructing the rules of human interaction, in real time, through uncertainty, through prediction, through emotional output. And that is why it feels so intense. Because at that moment, you are not just being looked at, you're being modeled.